All right, ladies and gentlemen, join us tonight, Jonathan Carpenter, the vocalist of the successful progressive metal band. Where did we get that? Progressive metal band? Isn't that like an insult to a metal band to be associated with a mainstream political movement like progressivism?
No. Progressive metal is different. Progressive.
Oh, am I showing my ignorance about a genre we're going to have explained to us tonight? He's currently wrapping up a tour with Hatebreed. Their newest album, Intrinsic, is available now on iTunes and on physical CD. We have to say physical CD now because it's such the exception. They're going to be hitting the road again very shortly with another with their tour After the Burial, but we want to play them in tonight with a little bit of their track Hollow Movement. Jonathan Carpenter, the vocalist of the Contortionist. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Outstanding. So, tell us about the band. What are you guys working on right now, and what do we have to look forward to?
Well, we just wrapping up our tour with Hatebreed right now, and Shadows Fall and Dying Fetus. It's been sick. It's been about a 3-week run or so. We got a few more dates getting us home, and then on. In March, we have the Road to Metal Fest tour, and then we have some other dates coming up after that, not announced yet, and also some dates coming up just in the near future. They're going to be announced soon. I can't wait for everybody to show up, rock out.
So, would you describe the style of music as progressive metal?
That's a pretty.
No artist will accept a label without resistance, right?
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things that to a certain person that's gonna be the wrong way to say it. But I would say it's kind of a pretty general term nowadays when it comes with all the homogenization of different genres of metal. I think progressive metal sounds kind of easy now compared to a lot of things I've heard.
Like post-hardcore electronica trance extravaganza. Yeah.
It starts to be a lot of 3/6s and stuff. It gets hard.
So what does it mean to you then? How would if your music was the genre unto itself, how would you describe it?
This kind of sounds. This doesn't even sound necessarily positive right off the bat, but really it's almost like schizophrenia core. Something. I mean, that's just a joke. Obviously, that sounds stupid, but
with all due respect to any schizophrenics that might be listening right now, we're not talking about you. Schizophrenic core.
Yeah, I've heard that. I think the reason I'm saying that is because I've heard that before. People, using the word schizophrenic, but I think really the goal of it is to be contrasting. So I think that the progressive side of things, a lot of people label themselves progressive, but I think what makes it progressive usually, in my experience, has been using a wide range of sounds and having, different types of songs and not just one type of sound. I think that's kind of the gist of it, but, like I said, it's obviously all opinions when it comes down to it.
Well, there's one theme in your music that is really... I want to say near and dear to my own progressive heart, in the sense that you're looking forward, as a libertarian, wanting to see the intersections for me with technology and music and art. You really bring a lot of that to your music. I want to quote from an interview that you did with KZSC in Santa Cruz. There's a bunch of books that I've read, mostly science, not necessarily science fiction, that talk about topics that are still being discovered, like neuroanatomy and different biotechnologies that are discussed on the album as far as story goes. Reading books like that inspired me to talk about things that could happen in the future, things that could really change our daily lives and experiences of reality. Now, it would certainly be appropriate for a cutting-edge musical genre to have cutting-edge themed lyrics, but you're looking forward more than I think typical metal fare here. How do you relate this to your music, and how has it been received by the audience?
Well, I think I mean that's a pretty good quotation to grab. I'd say I think that sums it up pretty well. As far as the way Intrinsic goes, it kind of started with Exoplanet, our first album. Whenever I first approached it, I knew I wanted it to be some sort of story, but I didn't necessarily know the whole album was going to be involved, and that kind of crafted itself as I got into it. And I don't know, I had a lot of fun doing that and having the album writing sense, not just the songwriting aspect of it. I think a lot of the bands I've listened to over the years have given that to me, that depth to an album. And when it comes to the science lyrics, I mean, that's something I think kind of just goes along with exactly what I said. A lot of books I've just been checking out and geeking out over, and just all that. That's cool. That's sick. Maybe go look that term up, and just learning new words is kind of something that I actually kind of enjoy, and I think that there's some sort of audience out there, that metalheads included, that enjoy that too, being able to feel like they're intaking new information, not just necessarily listening to a pulse or a rhythm or something, but also, learning something, if you will. But, I don't want to get too geeky with it. It's not necessarily supposed to be a science lesson, but, maybe at times it comes off that way.
Well, before we come back to that and some of these themes, about your musical influences, you talked about writing for the album rather than writing individual songs. Are there any?
Sure.
Do you have any influences that inspired that in particular?
I would say first and foremost, and probably most obviously, would be Dream Theater. For me personally, I think even the rest, there's a good portion of the band, large percentage of the band that's highly influenced by that band as well. But for me, lyrically and the whole organization of things, yeah, definitely. It's like a Dream Theater. I mean, there's a lot of other things that approach, or a lot of other genres that also approach albums in a more flowing way. And I think that's another thing that I've always been attracted to, is not necessarily presenting our album as a collection of songs, but more of like a work that it rewards you by listening to it all the way through. That type of vibe, if you will.
Well, then, is there a unifying message or takeaway from this? What are you trying to portray with the album?
Very good question. With Exoplanet, it kind of has more of a giving the human perspective a very tiny piece of the pie, making them feel very tiny by the end of things. And then with Intrinsic, it was the opposite. And it was talking about everything on the album is all contained within the brain. And, when it comes to the later half of the album, it talks about manipulation of that through, a neuroprosthetic, getting kind of wordy here, meaning basically I was saying that, the thought of having someone have the ability to experience and feel, quite literally feel your dreams, would they really ever be trying to spend any kind of time in actual reality? And, to me, I think there's some sort of a dark kind of feel to that, kind of a dark sound to that, thinking about everybody just being hooked up to machines in the future, because that's the most enjoyable way to live.
Wait, hold on. I want to get geeky with you for a second here. What was it? Neuro?
Neuroprosthetic.
Neuroprosthetic. I've thought a lot about. I spend an unhealthy amount of time thinking about when I'm going to get a chip in my brain and all the cool things that I'm going to be able to do, hooking it up to 3D printers and stuff like that. But neuroprosthetic, sure. I actually haven't heard that term before. Does that suggest a particular physical form of this, or are you just talking about chips in the brain?
Well, doing a physical implant is very difficult, and doing it with an actual physical implant can be difficult just because of the physical fact of the brain moving around can disturb its location and where it's actually affecting. Mm-hmm. And I think there's definitely going to be more answers, and there's a reference to this in Dreaming Schematics. It says hidden in the vacuum, which is basically referring to quantum mechanics and saying that there would be some sort of technology in the future that could allow communication of data between basically different times, and you could build something so small that would manipulate quantum data. And I think that would kind of be the future of brain science and getting the technology smaller and smaller. So when I say brain prosthetic or a neuroprosthetic. It's not. Don't necessarily think of it as like a little metal thing you'd be clipped to your head or something. That would probably be like an earlier stage of it. It would be a manipulation like that. But I think really, when it comes to the overall branching description of what I was trying to portray with the songs themselves, was more of a subtle thing where someone could get a transplant or an implant, if you will, to their brains, so that way they could feel and enjoy and have like a very real and lucid dream that they would feel.
Well, at that point, couldn't you just basically engineer your brain to do whatever you want? I mean, couldn't you tinker with the levers of your brain chemistry itself, like we build computers? I mean, I always jump to the conclusion, I mean, maybe it's just because of what a crude guy that I am, but if you wanted to, if you could really program your brain, couldn't you program it so that you're like experiencing orgasm 24/7?
You could, but there would be repercussions, I believe.
Wait, you're the one talking about putting nano computers in my head, and you're saying because I want to orgasm all the time, I'm the one flirting with disaster?
I feel you. I think, as amazing as that sounds, you have to think about how annoying that would be after a little bit. However, what if you had a button, though? Now that'd be something else. If you just had a little button that would just be like, oh, okay, I'm good.
Well, it's hard to imagine that we don't have that. Like
I
really,
agree.
If you understand the converging technologies here of 3D printing, of supercomputing, of nanotechnology, like it's really hard to imagine that I mean, how old are you?
I'm 20, almost 24.
Shit. Well, okay. I'm a little bit older, but like for us, still, by the end of our lifetimes, it's really hard to imagine that we don't have such at very least an orgasm button.
An orgasm button. That would be a hot seller, I guarantee. Woo. Imagine.
But it's not going to be a button. It's going to be a switch. It's going to be like a setting on your iPhone, except it's going to be a setting on your brain control panel, right?
Sure. And and like all those things would be amazing. And I think really in Intrinsic, there's kind of a mixed, it's like a mixed outcome, if you will. There's Solipsis, which is a very dark and depressing, like someone who I kind of imagine to be someone who would lose touch with their actual reality and would be so involved in the experience that they're paying for and have transplanted in themselves, that they would go into madness. And that's what Solipsis is about. And the last song is called Parallel Trance, and that's supposed to basically portray just somebody that is having an otherworldly body experience, essentially. And I think there's a lot of if you read out there's a lot of material to read on people and their experiences, and there's a lot of curious similarities and stuff. And I think not necessarily any of that has to particularly do with what's actually out there. I think it has a lot more to do with just our perceptions of what we're socially told. But either way, I think that stuff's really pretty neat to kind of like compile, and I kind of tried to have that song be a representation of a trip, if you will.
Well, that's a perfect segue into my next question. Jonathan, what drugs do you do?
I would say mostly THC consumption is my weapon of choice.
There you go.
Good to me.
Yeah, you gotta call. Sometime you gotta get behind your computer with Skype when you can join us when you're not on the road, and Skype in with some glass. Then when we blow the conch shell at the end of the show here. But you talked about simulating a trip. I don't mean to put you on the spot, and feel free to decline. But do you have any experience with psychedelics?
Minimal. I would say that I've kept it. I've tried to keep a leash on myself when it comes to certain things. But it's also one of those things that certain experiences in my past have kind of opened my eyes to certain things, and at the same time, it also is it's kind of like playing with fire. You have to be careful, because it's like, that's kind of like one of the warnings of the album as well, I kind of suppose, is saying if you mess with your brain a little too much, there can be consequences. So I guess that's kind of my moderation is my choice.
Hey, if you don't mess with your brain enough, there might be consequences. No, we have some experience here with DMT, and I was just wondering because it seems like there are some related themes, and I would never say like, oh, I'm gonna go trip on some DMT. I'm gonna listen to some metal.
Right.
But if there was any metal that I could be like, all right, I could, I mean, and by the way, I've listened to some crazy shit smoking DMT, like retarded shit.
Adam listens to some crazy shit on DMT. Yeah. I've seen him on DMT just headbanging.
Yeah.
Like the fuck.
Right. I definitely wouldn't listen to metal if I did DMT.
So is Suffocation.
I wouldn't be listening to metal.
Yeah, right.
What would you be listening to?
Oh yeah, Suffocation.
Oh man, I'd be listening to something really chill and ambient probably. Something from Brian Eno most likely would be my first choice. Just thinking about being in an intense situation as that. I actually haven't done DMT, but that was a very big influence on the songwriting. When it came to that track and kind of looking up information on different stories and different likenesses and. Just it's crazy, and even just personal experience, with different friends and such, it's cool to, share stories and stuff, hear stories and all that.
Where are you based out of?
Indianapolis, Indiana.
Yeah. So when are you going to be coming through Northern Virginia so we can smoke some DMT together?
Northern Virginia, we were probably just passing there not too long ago. We just played. Whatchamacallit? Oh, come on. West Springfield. Empire. Jax.
Kevin, do you have any questions or comments from the chat?
Well, actually, I have a really interesting comment. There's no questions or comments from the chat. I mean, pretty much everybody's just discussing their favorite bands.
They have people talking about Rush and Dream Theater.
Yeah.
They're kind of the OG progressive metal people.
Oh, okay.
No real questions that I noticed.
Yeah, no real questions.
Well, Jonathan, I have to ask: Have you done a track about 3D printing yet?
3D printing?
Yeah.
That would be sick.
Well, that's my request for the next album then.
Right on.
That'd be great.
I like that.
When are we gonna see it, Jonathan?
What's up?
When are we gonna see it?
See what?
The 3D printing track.
The 3D printing album.
Yeah,
the
3D print the album.
Printing.
Yeah, 3D
Dude, if you do
print the album and record it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk about how you can print your own housewares and print your own food.
Hell yeah.
Oh,
you can print your own
man.
album.
Print your own album.
All right, Jonathan. Very much look forward to it. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No
Where
problem.
can people plug in to get connected with your band?
I would say Facebook would probably be the most updated way to keep up with us. Just follow us on there and the like, and also just a quick Google search of tour dates for the Contortionist. You can usually pull up everything we got, and as of right now, we got a pretty full spring coming up ahead. So everyone should be going and checking it out. We'll see them soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Jonathan Carpenter of The Contortionist. You're listening to Hollow Heart.
Thank you, man.
Oh shit, I'm 9 inches away from your crotch, and I'm feeling your penis.